Dragon's Lair, where I will be continuing with the daily reading from Convergence, Book 1 of the Dragon Within Saga. It's available online. You can check it out by visiting my website, the official author page, and the website will be in the description. Thank you very much. We're going to pick up in Chapter 23. It's going to be a little bit longer today because we're going to get through the rest of Chapter 23 and see how it ends for Ronalden, Zendalia, and their mother. And just to recap, they are just beginning the preparations to get ready to leave for finding their new home. So here we go. Stringing a bow, as instructed by her older brother, was supposed to be a very personal process. One was supposed to take time to get to know the wood comprising it, how it bent to the forces acting upon it, and how the string combined with the wood to create tension. She remembered the first time her brother showed her his intensely personal process. He had taken more time describing the wood of his bow than she thought necessary. What type of tree it had come from, what area of Avendia the tree had called home, and how it was acquired by the merchant his father had purchased it from, to why it was the perfect type of wood for someone his age, were all part of his methodical lecture. He insisted that all these things were necessary to truly become one with the bow. She knew the meticulous nature of her brother and how his dependency upon the rituals of training and knowledge combined to produce a great hunter and tracker. She could not deny it, no matter how much her path to performance deviated from his. She knew her brother held nothing but her best intentions and development of her skills on the top of his mind, yet his steadfast adherence to one and only one way to improve those skills, while not assigning her differing methods with an equal amount of validity, created a rift between them. A rift that was continuing to grow as their time in life progressed. In truth, she did not care what wood was used in the creation of her bow. She did not care what merchant it was purchased from, nor did she care about the means and methods the merchant employed to acquire it. She knew that mechanically the wood needed to be inspected as did the strings to ascertain their integrity, but she did not need to know how they combined at their ends to produce tension. She had always been able to feel it as she held the bow in her hands and slowly drew the string. She could hear the strings whisper their tension with every inch she drew them back. The harmony produced within her as the wood bent allowed her to feel her target's extension through the wood and directly into the arrow. The only way she could explain it, which is probably very inadequate to what was actually happening, was to say that when the vibrations indicated a connection between her aim and her target, she knew she would strike true. From the time she first held the bow in her hand, it was this way. While her brother spent hours upon hours shooting arrow after arrow at targets differing to further understand his sight, wind, resistance, aiming techniques, and all other aspects of marksmanship taught to him by their father, her practice centered around the more docile and deliberate meditative techniques of focusing her mind upon sensing differences in vibrations between things. She began to understand that when these vibrations were in sync with that of her bows, her aim would be true regardless of how much she did not understand about the other aspects of marksmanship. So while her brother would require much more time than she to string a bow, and was probably the reason for his impatience, she did so much more quickly. Having completed her task, feeling it had been done with enough integrity to produce a true shot, she changed her clothes into those more appropriate for hunting and tracking. She gathered her small, leather-bound satchel, picked up her quiver of arrows, threw it over her back, and made her way to meet her brother, who was, by now, impatiently waiting near the forest trail leading to the west of their home. True to her instincts and knowledge of Ronalden, he was standing just at the onset of the forest path. She could tell his impatience with her was rising, because he would always cross his arms when he was finally able to see her. As she approached, she could see that he had two, not one, leather satchels filled with supplies. He had obviously planned for an extended hunting trip because he only ever brought one. Well, are you ready? Fearing that his mood was going to make this a silent and sour experience, she could not help herself from feeling his already growing ire. I am always ready, Roni. Today will not be any different than the last several we have gone on. I do not know why you have brought those extra supplies. Of course it is different. If we do not succeed today, we will have to go again tomorrow and delay finding our new home. You have probably not noticed how low our winter stores are at all, considering you never checked them. We need to successfully hunt for a very long trip because we do not know how long we'll be gone this time. So it is time to become serious, sister of mine. Mother is depending on us as his father. Now let us to task without further delay." He turned purposefully and strode into the forest. Expecting a lecture, she was prepared for a much longer speech. So when he turned briskly and strode away after only a few sentences, she was left standing for several paces, expecting him to return and continue. But when he did not, she picked up her satchel and strode after him. In contrast to both of their expectations, which were bleak because of the precedent set by the last 5 hunting trips, this one stood out as an exception and produced all of the animals they would likely require for all of their needs for an exceedingly prolonged absence from their current home. Expecting to be gone into the night, they were both pleasantly surprised with the success they were fortunate enough to experience. They were excited for primarily 2 reasons. Firstly, the number of animals they were able to hunt in the short amount of time was an indication they could hope again. And secondly, they would have another evening with their mother to speak with regarding their plans. So, when their spirits were lifted as a direct result of the prosperity they now experienced, even if only minimally finite in its nature, they quickened their steps and managed to behave as a loving brother and sister might when faced without the harsh reality of the days to come. Looking up from her gardening, still well behind where she wanted to be because of her emotional crescendo earlier, the dour mood she had assumed as a result was all but dissolved by the sight of her son and daughter walking toward her, both with broad smiles on their faces. Since the death of their father, this was a sight she had not witnessed in a very long time. Her last memory of them together and clearly enjoying each other was similar to today insomuch as it was a return from a hunting trip. But then, Ronnie had just turned 12 and was excited once again at the success he exhibited with his father. Upon seeing him, Zin ran up to him, threw her arms around him, and gave him a large hug. While seeing the genuine joy of her children produced an elevation to her spirits, it was not enough to dissolve away all her sadness. She knew their joy would be much too temporary, yet in spite of this knowledge, she did thank God for their temporary reprieve from the difficulties they would soon face. Seeing the excitement in their eyes as they approached helped her ease the thoughts still running circles in her mind. Her daughter spoke first, with an exuberance she had not heard in her voice since childhood. "Mother, look at all the animals Ronnie and I were able to hunt today. Truly, fate was with us this day, and will be with us, all 3 of us, in the days to come." "Do not be too hasty, Zin. We still have a long journey ahead of us, and this is but one successful day. Let us hope that our fortune continues," interjected Ronnie, before his sister could continue with her praise to fate. "Now, Ronnie, do not be so quick to take your sister's good feelings. After all, if it is going to be a difficult journey, it will be so regardless of the joy one feels. Better to have a good mood in a bad situation than a bad mood in a good situation," she said as she helped diffuse what was going to develop into an argument. "Let us all finish gathering the rest of the vegetables from my garden and have a peaceful evening while we discuss your journey." After Zin told their mother the full extent of the success of their task, she too settled in with her brother to help their mother completing her duties for the day. They worked well into the evening, but not far enough to completely exhaust the setting sun. Rather, it seemed their work was completed at just the right moment to seize the sunset by restful hands and enjoy the entire splendor now presented. They sat on their chairs on the wooden porch, Ronnie by himself, while Zindalia nuzzled up to her mother as a tender arm was placed around her shoulder the way they had done so many times in more youthful years. Brilliantly lit with several colors, but dominated by the deepest and most robust orange the 3 of them had ever seen, the slowly setting blood-orange disk was just moments above the horizon. All 3 of them paused their collective breaths, as if it would allow the sun itself to hang still and grant them a few more precious minutes to be together on this evening. But not even hope can stop the setting sun. So, as the beautifully deep orange sun faded into the presence of indigo meeting violet, signaling the relentless passage of time below the unforgiving horizon, they silently sat resting in each other's presence, each in their own way, being thankful for the other. Ronnie, seeing that both his mother and sister shared in their slumber within the collective embrace of this perfect evening, could not help but feel alone. He missed his Draheen, and needed him more than ever tonight. Watching the easy rhythm of breaths as the 2 women's chests rose and fell, he could not feel anything but helpless while faced with the daunting task and resulting mountain of responsibility. He was not ready. He could not possibly be ready, and yet at the same time, he had to be ready. With both his mother's and sister's futures and continued lives resting squarely on his shoulders, he tried placing himself in his father's mind in the hope that he could speak to him from beyond the grave. But no words, nor voice, nor guidance came. His father was gone, and he was forced to face the reality that the memory he held of him had faded over the years. With this acknowledged revelation, he decided not to disturb the peaceful dreams he hoped the two women were having and quietly made his way to his bedchamber. While undressing, he mentally reviewed everything they had done to make ready for the unknown variables of their journey. When his review produced satisfaction, he humbly slipped under his sheet, rested his head on his pillow, and offered a silent, tear-producing, "I miss you, Draheen," to wherever his father was now. Feeling alone and small, he let the weight of it all transfer to his eyes, now heavy with fatigue. As they closed, so too did his thoughts of his father close upon his wakeful consciousness, allowing him to join his mother and sister in their slumber. All right, we're going to end right there. That does conclude Chapter 3 in Convergence, Book 1 of the Dragon Within Saga. Thank you so much for tuning in again. In spite of the horrible reading, I appreciate it. Remember, you can go online at my website in the description below, dragonwithin.org, and order the book if you want, if you enjoyed what you heard. Thanks again for tuning in, and until next time, when we catch up again, never forget to release your dragon within. Thank you, and have a great day, everyone.